Starts campaign here in Simcoe County has been operating since 2017. It's a public awareness campaign aimed at taking a proactive step towards addressing racism and discrimination throughout Simcoe County. The It Starts program was also intended to promote a unified community that encourages collective action against racism and discrimination. So it was more than just talking about it, but actually taking a physical step or action to against racism and discrimination here in Simcoe County. What we were seeing, not just here in Simcoe County, but globally, a move towards more tolerance, that people were tolerating racism and discriminatory language, and felt that we really needed to make a change, that not to tolerate this behavior and not to tolerate some of the racism that we are seeing and the actions occurring in our own communities, but to stand up and start something, which is where the hashtag It Starts campaign developed from. The thinking being, it starts with each one of us. It starts with us as individuals, and it starts with our organizations. So the intent of the program was to have members of our organization engage with our community through social media platforms and use language that spoke to how we believed it could start, with simple words such as it starts with equity, or it starts with embracing change, or it starts with enriching the lives of others, or it starts with being more inclusive. And so what we did is we created these placards that were then distributed in the community. And what we allowed people to do is to write into that line. So it starts with me. They could put their name, or they could put the word of what starts with them. So being more inclusive starts with me. So different words that people could add to that, and then hold that plaque up and have a picture taken and then post that to social media. The campaign then went on to take these placards that were created and post them in a public location. And so one of the biggest supporters of the program were our local libraries and the coalition of libraries throughout Simcoe County. And those libraries posted these placards all across their front windows. So anybody walking in would see the sign and say, it starts with being more inclusive. It starts with partnerships. And that would then start the conversation and have that dialogue with those people in the library and help educate them as to what this campaign was all about.
The campaign has evolved every year. In the second year of the campaign, we introduced the role of ambassadors. And ambassadors are individuals who make a commitment to implement the campaign in their community of practice. And so we try to provide them with tools to help them start those conversations. And so there are resources around educational tools and information that they could use. So some of them get involved in doing very formal presentations to their colleagues. Others make a commitment to getting it going on social media. Libraries have participation cards available to their community. So every single ambassador may implement the campaign in a different way. The Simcoe County District School Board has come on board as an important partner in those ambassador information sessions. And their role is really to help in the educational aspects and really encouraging individuals to have those conversations and develop confidence in having those conversations.
One of the key unique feature, I would say, was the training that was offered. So organizations that were going to participate were designated an ambassador, and an ambassador would come to some training. The training provided them with a lot of resources, literally a binder and a website full of resources, which they could look at and download as well. But it also offered them an opportunity to get approximately an hour to 2 hours of equity-based training delivered by facilitators. The facilitators were from the school board, so my department. We facilitated programs, and we took the program from the It Starts program from a focus on celebration to a real focus on understanding racism and systemic discrimination.
The real gem of the campaign is the ambassadors. The equipping and building up of individuals who feel comfortable engaging people in conversations, they really are the gem of the campaign, and we continue to grow those numbers every year. And so we had to give thought to how do we keep these individuals engaged year-round. In 2020, we launched a Simcoe County Diversity Hub, which is an online community of practice for ambassadors that is there year-round to continue to engage them. One of the important ways that the community sustains the campaign, it runs for an entire month during March, and it requires a lot of momentum. And one of the ways that we have addressed that is by having community champions take a leadership role for 1 week of the campaign. The initial year, we had one community champion per week, and in 2020, we had on average 3 community champions per week. And so each of those organizations dedicates resources to their weeks. And that could be in the way that they are organizing activities. For example, Lakehead University on their campus, a couple of years ago, they had a paint night that was really focused around giving people an opportunity to use artistic expression of racism and discrimination. So they would have provided the resources for that. But each organization also commits their communications team to the social media activity during that week.
When an organization first joined the It Starts program, often they would engage in introductory activities, things such as really focusing on celebration, for instance. And that might mean that they would be, doing things like book clubs, and they might do things like potlucks, and focusing on different international kind of foods, and basically bringing people into the celebratory aspect of immigration and of racial diversity and ethnic and cultural diversity. But then as people built their capacity, we were hoping that organizations would engage further. As they sort of embraced the ideas around the It Starts program, they would then do things like do some intentional learning within their organization. They would review some of their practices. They would possibly change some of their policies as they gained a better understanding of the different needs of diverse communities and of immigrant communities. A key feature of the effectiveness of the It Starts program would also be the multitude of organizations that were involved. For instance, I was a representative from the education sector, and then therefore I could use my network to promote it within the education sector. Other people who were ambassadors might have been parts of the healthcare sector, or they might be part of the business community. We had people who were parts of the municipal government, and they participated. And so it could really reach all sections of the community, because each of us had an opportunity to promote it within our own sectors.
Libraries were early adopters of the campaign, and I always think of them as being the backbone of the campaign. And so, we have over 30 public libraries in Simcoe County, and those public spaces are promoting the campaign in all different ways in their public spaces, on their social media accounts, and really watched some of those public libraries become very good at sharing educational materials about racism and discrimination, highlighting books that they can read. So they're really out there in the public spaces. And then our municipalities have gotten involved and issued proclamations highlighting the fact that racism and discrimination is not acceptable in our communities, and encouraging people to recognize the International Day to Eliminate Racial Discrimination. We have 3 police forces who are part of the It Starts campaign who provide services in Simcoe County, and it's been great. They're all equally dedicated to addressing racism and discrimination. We have strong partnerships with our post-secondary, Lakehead and Georgian College, and our school boards. So some of that efficiency lies in the fact that we have a local immigration partnership that's been operating for 10 years. You don't build those relationships and those partnerships overnight, and they take time. And so that has been an important aspect of, the efficiency of the campaign and bringing people together. every year we're looking at the number of ambassadors that we're able to recruit, the number of ambassador information sessions that we host, and we look at the number of organizations that they represent and if they are new organizations. So have we added organizations? So for example, in 2021, there were 39 organizations that were represented in the ambassadors who attended the information sessions, but 14 of those organizations were new to the campaign. We also give the ambassadors an opportunity to provide feedback and evaluation about their perspective of the ambassador information sessions. And so we review those and look for ways that we can find them more engaging. We track the progress of the ambassadors during the campaign to look at their participation. In 2020, we had over 100 individuals who attended ambassador information sessions, and we found that 90% of ambassadors actively participated in the campaign during the month of March. The other thing we do look at is just the number of events that take place during the month of March. So again, recognize that means more organizations who are hosting those events are more committed to the campaign. And so we've seen an increased number of events. Social media is an important way that we measure results. And so we use Meltwater. So initially in the first year of the campaign, the social media reach was 1.5 million users. And in the fifth year of the campaign, the social media reach had increased to 5.1 million users. Another great aspect, though, of advances in social media is our Meltwater reports for the last 2 years now allow us to evaluate another aspect, which is negative commentary. And so we've been able to see between 2020 and 21 a reduction in the negative commentary during the campaign, which we see as another way of evaluating the impact of the campaign. We introduced the Simcoe County Diversity Hub as a resource and tool. And so we measured the activity on this online community of practice during the month of March. During the month of March, there were 4,632 page views, and almost 2,500 of those were unique page views, and there was 275 entrances. So 275 people have been using the Diversity Hub during that. The last way that we look at measurement, which is really a difficult way to really measure, but with something that we are very cognizant of looking at, one of the things we've always been worried about is that this campaign could lead to tokenism. You know, I did the campaign, we held up our sign and everything is good. And so it's always been one of the things that we've been a little bit wary of, and we've always been trying to look at ways to measure the deepening of the campaign. And so that really is just an analysis of the kind of information that's being posted. And so we are seeing a deepening of the campaign. So a shift away from many of our community champions, for example, of putting up a picture, but rather sharing other information and materials that are related to discussions about racism and discrimination. The campaign, for the most part, is a low-cost, high-impact initiative. There's not, you know, most of the costs are related to staff time in reviewing materials, preparing the materials for the ambassador information sessions, scheduling them, connecting and hosting meetings with community champions. We do every year try to introduce some new resources. So there are some minimal costs, but it really is a campaign that if you've got people who in the community who want to partner together, the costs are minimal if they're willing to dedicate their human resources to it. I think understanding social media and how you hit those targets and expand those targets has been part of the learning for our team. So understanding, for example, and I always use myself as an example, you know, I have 90 some of followers on Twitter. When I post something, it doesn't go very far. But having, you know, engaging larger organizations or individuals who have large followings of several thousand people makes a big difference in the reach of the campaign. So trying to engage organizations of influence and people of influence, I think, is a really important aspect of the social media campaign that we've come to understand. I think part of the success of the campaign is designing elements of the campaign that are flexible to individuals' expertise and comfort levels. So we'll have some people who come up to an ambassador information session who aren't comfortable on social media, who don't use social media and think that they can't participate in the campaign. So we, have conversations about how they can be working with their colleagues, supporting information sharing in their workplace, in public spaces, that it doesn't have to be a social media campaign. And so you've got people, there's a wide breadth of ways that people can get engaged. And I think that has been part of the attraction of the campaign.
One of the important aspects for any campaign is the relationships that are built within the people that are participating in the campaign. Our central coordinator has spent a lot of time building strong relationships with different members of the community. And so that's incredibly important to make sure that you engage different aspects of the community, whether it's the education sector, which is the healthcare sector, the social services, the police services. It's very important for the central coordinator to have been able to build those relationships over time and keep people engaged, and also to keep people committed. One potential limitation to the transfer of the program is the unwillingness of the organizers or the participants to go beyond the superficial celebratory nature of, and it starts, social media campaign. People are all fine to get on board with a social media campaign that involves lots of pictures and recipes and posters and things like that. But if you really want to have an impact, then you have to be willing to engage in conversations around racism and discrimination, systemic and organizational racism and discrimination, and have an understanding of policies and historical practices that limit the opportunities for immigrants and newcomers to really be successful, to integrate successfully into society.